struggling to move your nonprofit forward? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Nonprofit Architect, where we are giving you the actionable steps you need to launch and grow your nonprofit organization. Now, here's your host, Travis Johnson.
Hey, this is Travis Johnson. You're listening to the Nonprofit Architect Podcast. If you're loving what you hear, check out patreon.com/nonprofitarchitect. Give us a couple of bucks a month. Keep the show on the air. And if you're looking for a group, someone to connect with, you want to chat with me in person, go to facebook.com/group/nonprofitarchitect. Sign up for the group. Join the conversation on the back end. Get some really value added to your life. Hey, we're on today with Teresa Blaes, one of the geniuses behind Kadosh Media and my personal back end and recording studio. Teresa, how are you doing today?
You know what? I'm doing really good. God's good. He's still on the throne. Everything else is negotiable.
Isn't that the truth? I love that. Hey, for the listeners out there, give them a little backstory on what you do with Kadosh Media and how you're impacting people with all your back end skills.
So Kadosh Media is a podcast production company run by Christians for Christians. We are giving the remnant of God a voice in these last days, and Lord knows we are in the last days. If you look around the world, you're seeing things, and the best way that we found that we can combat what's going on is to help believers, on fire believers, reach the people of God and maybe those that need to hear the message with the truth that He's laid on their heart.
There's no finer mission in the land. I tell you what, Teresa, I wasn't shocked at all when I got a wonderful recommendation from Michelle Gotch. I think she's episode 4 on my list. If you haven't checked out her story, she runs Altered Stories Ministry. She's a fantastic woman. She even had my mom on the show. Wonderful time. But we're here today to talk about why you as a nonprofit should run a podcast and what that can do to help your brand and help your mission and help your donations. I know Teresa was talking earlier about that media trend has really shifted, starting with Obama in 2012 and the whole social media landscape and how that's going. What do you think the big difference maker has been in the social media podcasting realm since that day?
Well, I want to couch this within a framework before I actually answer that. Let's open this because I think this will kind of set the tone for the rest of the questions. Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a very well-known marketer, very well-known media person, that kind of thing, he has a quote that ever since I heard it has resonated with me, and I think it says a lot here. In our pocket, our phones are more powerful than the computer that Reagan used to run the country. Think about that. The phone that you carry in your pocket, that you check your social media, that you check your email, that you do whatever you're doing with, it is more powerful than the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, used to run the country. Now, in that context, what has happened? Social media has kind of cropped up. It's not even a term. It's more the state of the internet. We are more social. And if you look at the area of podcasting, just in Apple iTunes alone, there's close to 800,000 podcasts, less than 1 million podcasts in that store. Compare that to over 2 billion websites online. If you have a message, one of the best ways to get it out there is to start a podcast. Case in point, I have seen a lot of political shows coming up. A lot of political shows run by like representatives and senators like Ted Cruz and Dan Bongino, who was a former Secret Service guy. He actually ran for office in Maryland. Oh goodness, Matt Shea, I think it was. A lot of senators, Al Franken, just so it's not all conservatives that are doing it, but all these guys are stepping around mainstream media in the 30-second soundbite and starting their own podcast. I really and truly believe that you can take advantage of that, whatever you're doing, whatever the nonprofit is that you're running, you can take advantage of that.
Oh, absolutely. It allows you to speak directly to the people. You don't have some editor, you don't have some corporation dictating what it is, how your message has to sound, what it has to look like, and what portion. You said 30-second soundbite. Let's be honest. Some of these are 10-second sound bites or less. You get 3 words in, you've got no supporting structure, you've got no framework, you've got no context for what it is that they're pulling the clip out, and they're using that for whatever side of the media, wants to sway it left or right, or, just completely off the map. So if you're trying to reach a certain group of people, let's say you are a veteran and you're running a veteran nonprofit, you want to talk to veterans, you can start a podcast geared directly to the people that you're helping. Conversely, you can start a podcast speaking directly to the donors that you're trying to reach to talk about your message. But I know Teresa was talking earlier, there's different ways to do this. There's different types of podcasts. What are those different types of podcasts?
You could come on, let's say you're the voice of the company. You're the one that's been put in charge of fundraising and getting media outreach. You could actually come on and be the voice of this show and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And so you could have like a monologue. Very similar to the monologues that you might see from a Sean Hannity or a Rachel Maddow or whatever. You could actually run your own, do your own monologue, upload that, and you could use that to cover the news in whatever industry you're operating in. So if you are running a veteran-oriented podcast, you could talk about veterans' issues. I could think of one instance where I ran across a veteran who was in a really, really bad way. And where I live, we have nothing for veterans. Absolutely nothing. Okay. You could actually talk about what are some of the issues that veterans are facing and how do we help them in the context of whatever your mission is. Maybe you're trying to help a veteran move from military to civilian life. Well, there's a lot of baggage that comes with that. And so you could actually talk about some of the issues that come into that. Do you have any comments before I go on to the next one?
No, I mean, that's exactly right on. If you are helping military members transition from the service into the civilian life, if you're helping military members or veterans with PTSD, if you're trying to help them find a job, if you're trying to, whatever it is that you're doing, if you're connecting them to services, you can talk about what that is, what that looks like. You can talk about the partners that you use. You can talk about your methods for how you do it. And all of these things, all these little pieces stack up and add up to something that's going to support your podcast, support your nonprofit, your mission, your vision, your plans for the future. You can do this as a single show. You can do it as a monologue. I mentioned in a previous recording that I'm not good by myself, and doing a monologue just doesn't work for me. You can do it in an interview style, which is the way I prefer because I can ask questions. I don't have to have any of the answers if I don't want to. I can just ask the questions. And then you can do a roundtable where you have multiple guests on an episode. And if you have multiple guests on an episode, you can gain lots of different perspectives, which is fantastic. But what you might miss out on, or you might have problems with, is people stepping on each other. So now that you know the different types of podcasts, the next step is making sure that you can use them to actually bring in money to your organization. And I think Teresa's got a couple of ways that can do this. Teresa, what do you got?
I've seen a lot of different ways you could do that. Like you could set up a Patreon or there's a couple of the Supercast or a Glow.fm. You could say, hey, if you really support what I'm doing, if you like what I'm doing, would you please drop, very similar to what Travis did here. Okay. And what that would do is, it's going to cover your hard costs of the podcast, but it also, you'll be able to take that money and drop it into your organization and it'll be able to run effectively.
Absolutely. And you can always, give away some kind of freebie. There's people out there that post behind the scenes content, which we plan on doing here with our podcast, showing like the pre-interviews. So you can see kind of behind the curtain, so to speak, of what do I do when I qualify guests, and what do we talk about, and how do we figure out what we're going to talk about so we can bring you this great content. You can give away mugs. I know Steven Crowder has the mug club. If you sign up, he sends you a mug. You can give away T-shirts or ebooks or 100 other things that you can come up with to provide some kind of extra value. So you're not just giving money to a Patreon for no added benefit to yourself. You have this other thing that you can give and help build that following.
Or like on a Daily Tech News Show, which is a tech-based podcast, they have a guy that comes in like every Friday and he draws a painting based on the stories of the day. And so, which it has some interesting connotations. And so what they do is they take that painting and say, hey, if you want this, become a Patreon.
Absolutely. There's so many ways to do it. You have to use those creative juices, and there's so many behind the scene things that you can do to do this, to where you, as maybe a sole founder or someone trying to run the show on your own, first off, you need to engage your board, but we won't get into this. But there's things you can do, like through really designs with Ginger and David, that the people that I use for my t-shirt company, or you can use Printful or Teespring, and it's zero cost to set up. And now you have something that when someone orders, there's no upfront cost to you. Everything is done on the back end. They create the t-shirt, they fulfill it, they ship it, and they just give you the money left over. Things like that are what you need to find.
Or even you could do a very simple roundtable, like, I'm going to meet with my community once a month on Zoom. Doug Hagman does that very well. Every first Sunday of the month, he gathers with his Patreons, because he's one that I actually support. But and we talk about the different news of the day. We talk about it, but we talk about it more in depth than you might hear on the show. And we talk about, like, okay, what do we do about this? And then, there's other issues that we just cover. And there's a lot of ways that you could do this. It just takes a little bit of forethought, a little bit of, how am I going to put this together? For my Teresa Blaes show, which is the show that I do on marketing and faith-based marketing and how to start an online ministry or a faith-based company, I'm thinking about running a newsletter, like a paid newsletter. There's all kinds of ways you can market your stuff online. It just takes a little bit of forethought. It takes a little bit of creativity. We live in an age where not having an idea and not having a way to get something done is an excuse.
Yeah. I know I've talked about this on my show before, but I'm deployed to the Middle East, active duty Navy, and I started this podcast. And whatever free time I have over here, I have a production company, Kadosh Media, and Teresa and Michael Blaes, that help me out. What I could have done is I could have started this on Anchor and run it for free. You don't have as much control about it. You don't have as much editability. Blog Talk Radio, there's a couple of different things out there to do it live and for free, but you also get...
They also have their drawbacks, yeah.
They have their drawbacks, and you get what you pay for, and sometimes, especially with podcasts, that results in reduced quality, reduced control, reduced storage, things like that. So you have to figure out what really is going to work for you and why it might matter, why you care. There's ways to get started for $200 a month or $500 a month. There's world-class production companies that are $1,000, $1,500 or more a month that take care of all the back end and different ways. And one of the benefits of doing something like we're recording via Zoom is you can split the left and right audio. And I think Teresa's got some tips on how to repurpose your content.
I do, actually. If you're using social media, clip some of these episodes up into, I'm trying to think. So like you could create stories, Instagram stories or Facebook stories, and turn these posts into a story. And then now you've got content for your social. You could transcribe them and then turn that into a blog post. You could turn your podcast into video. So now you've created 1, 2, 3, 4. There's so many ways you could do this, but it takes a little bit to get that part going. But once you get it going, it becomes a well-oiled machine. I know people, and I'm not saying you should do this, but I'm saying it's possible to do this. To out of one piece of pre-recorded content or live recorded content, and then you repurpose it into a podcast. So like you would go on Facebook Live, Instagram Live, whatever, and you would repurpose that content into a podcast. They take those recordings and turn them into 52 additional or more pieces of content per day.
Absolutely. You can do that. And what, the plan is for the Nonprofit Architect, at a bare minimum, we want to have the behind the scenes episodes on Patreon. We have the recordings that we have in Zoom. We want to take the Zoom video, put it on YouTube. We've got the podcast, the audio only that you already have access to. And we're going to transcribe these for blog posts so you can get the content in the method that you prefer throughout the day. That's 4 different ways to connect with your audience. I'm not a huge fan of video. That's not my thing. I'm usually in a place where watching a video is rude, and I almost never have earphones or headphones, and that's just the way I do it. But video is crushing things, 2, 3, 4 times to 1. And if you're not doing video in some capacity, if you're not capitalizing on Facebook Live or Insta Video, you're doing it wrong. And if you're trying to get your message out and connect with your audience, your donors, the people in your community, and you're not using something that you can control, yeah, we did, the interview with Lori McNeil, and she teaches you how to get on different local radio shows and local TV shows and such of that nature. But if you're not capitalizing on social media or running a cheap or free podcast, at least to start before you upgrade into some world-class work like Teresa and Michael provide with Kadosh Media, you're really hurting yourself. You can speak directly to whomever you choose to speak to. You just have to take the steps to do so.
It really comes down to this. I have seen a lot of people. I can remember I was working with a client a while back, and we told her, hey, this is how you do it. This is what you need to do. But I don't like the sound of my voice. And she just would complain. And I'll just throw this in because it's kind of where I'm thinking. If that's one of your main objections, that you don't like the sound of your voice or you think you won't sound good, let's be very honest. Your first up to 50 episodes of the show are going to suck. They're going to. Why? Because you're finding your voice. You're working out all the kinks. You're going through that process of maturing as a podcaster. Once you get in that rhythm and you start finding your voice, you're golden. But don't let that issue of, well, I don't like the way I sound. Whoever did. I used to suck as a podcaster. I did. I was scared out of my mind to launch the ministry podcast I do. But I did it anyway. I pushed through the suck factor, as I like to call it. And now I do it. I know what I'm doing. I'm comfortable behind the mic. It's like anything. Practicing a skill. The more time you spend behind that mic creating content and getting feedback from people, from your donors, from your people that are listening to your nonprofit, the more time you spend behind the mic putting in the reps, the more practice you get and the better you become.
That's without a doubt. We all can't be world-class podcasters like I am, just, a few episodes in. And I'm, of course, joking. There's so many things that I do wrong, that I struggle with. The back end, the scheduling, asking the right questions on Calendly, making sure I'm getting the right kind of. I had an episode that I had to re-record because I couldn't keep the guest ringed in. I had an episode that I thought was fire, just absolutely lit. And I was all done with it. I hit stop and realized that I hadn't hit record. In the Navy, that means you have to. In the Navy, that means you just earned yourself the right to write a checklist to make sure you do it right the next time.
Every podcaster makes that mistake. Every single one. You're going to have those moments where you're like, I want to kick myself right now because I didn't even record this and it was nails.
it's one of those things. You get this thing called analysis paralysis. You've had the idea, you've gained some information. Sometimes you listen to a couple of podcasts, or you read a couple of books, or you listen to a couple of this. But pretty soon you realize that you're just searching for more information. You're not actually taking action on it. Mm-hmm. And there's this little story I used at work the other day that got some good feedback. There's this couple riding on a donkey into town, and a little while up the road, they meet someone. They're like, "What are you doing? You have two of you on this donkey? The donkey can't handle that." So the man hops off the donkey, and he's walking next to his wife who's riding, and a little bit further up the road, they run into another person like, "I can't believe, are you the man of this house? You should be riding. She should be walking." So they switch. And a little bit further up the road as they head into town, they come across another person, of course. And they said, "I can't believe you would ride while your wife walks. What kind of a husband are you?" And then so he hops down, and he and his wife are walking together next to the donkey. And they come across someone else. I'm like, "I can't believe you're wasting this perfectly good donkey. You guys could both be riding." You see, it doesn't matter what it is that you choose to do. Right, wrong, or indifferent, someone is going to criticize and have an opinion about what it is that you're doing. You got to gather the information, ask the right questions, figure out what's right for you, and take that step and go. Sometimes you're going to run into roadblocks. Sometimes you're going to run into criticism that you really didn't think about that might kind of course correct you. But no matter what you pick, people are going to have something to say about what it is that you're doing. So what? Get out there and do it. People would rather...
It's been a very polarized culture, especially here in the U.S. We live in a very polarized culture, so everybody has an opinion. If you base what you're going to do or don't do on someone else's opinion, you're never going to take that step.
Never.
Whatever you're called to. If you choose not to podcast, fine. Get out there and publish. Get out there and create content to reach your audience, whether it's audio, video, or text-based. Get out there, get fast. Why do you think they put blinders on horses? So they don't get distracted by what's beside them or what could be on the side. They're focused on the goal, which is that finish line. You have a goal. You want to raise money for your nonprofit. You want to get the word out about your nonprofit. You want to help people. Podcasting can help you get to that finish line, but you got to put the blinders on. You got to ignore the judgments of other people and the criticisms and sometimes even the praise of other people. Put the blinders on, focus on your goal, and begin to run.
It's amazing that you talk about the blinder story. I absolutely love that quote. When they interviewed the top CEOs, the top executives, the richest people in the world, they asked them if you had one piece of advice, one single solitary thing that you could tell people of how to get to their goals, what would it be? Overwhelming majority says focus. If you can increase your focus on the thing that is you're doing, whether you're learning, working out, doing business stuff, whatever the thing is that you're doing, if you are focused on it, truly focused on it, you're going to crush everybody out there.
But we live in a very fast-paced society that doesn't know how to, we can barely focus on enough to write 250 characters in a tweet. This is a situation. I mean, think about it. We've been reduced. We used to be comfortable with writing letters. We've now been reduced to writing 250 characters in a tweet. That is a lack of focus. And if you really want to succeed, that can't be said about you.
Absolutely. If you're not sure whether or not you have the focus, see how many tabs are up running on your computer. See how many things are on your to-do list. See how many things you have that you started that you didn't finish. If you have a good list of those things, and I'm not saying I'm immune to those things, you may have a focus problem. I'm going to sit down. You know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to sit down. I'm going to read this book. I'm going to get the knowledge I need to do to be successful. whatever my nonprofit, whatever my business, whatever my mission, whatever my vision is. Oh, look, Facebook alert. Oh, look, here's my Clash of Clans game that I'm playing. Oh, phone call? Oh, I'd love to talk to Teresa all day. I could talk to Teresa for hours and hours and hours. End of the day comes, you're like, I didn't really get that new information. Oh, I skipped the gym. Oh, I ran out of time, so I didn't eat right. Whatever the thing it is distracting you, get it out of your life.
Yep.
Get rid of it. If you can't have the computer open while you're doing whatever your thing is, if emails are distracting you, turn it off. If you're trying to read or journal or meditate and your phone is distracting, put it in another room. Whatever the thing is, get rid of it.
I used to have a very bad addiction to text-based gaming. And in the process of my breaking free of that, I had to get rid of all the games off my phone. And I'm finding I'm a lot more productive because of it.
I think it was Warren Buffett. I don't have this quote on lockdown. But he's like, write out 20 goals, figure out what your top 5 are. And if it's not in that top 5, don't do them ever. Those top 5 goals should be the only things that you're focused on. They should be in different areas. They should be in health, wealth, lifestyle, happiness, foundation, whatever those things are. But if it's not your top 5 goals, don't spend any time on them.
Amen.
Well, Teresa, we've had a great episode. I'm wondering, what can my audience, what can my people, what can my team do for you?
Well, one, I really would like you guys to check out the Teresa Blaes show. It is a show not aimed at nonprofits, but is aimed at faith-based business owners and or online ministries. But I really do try and bring a lot of fire. And so I talk about mindset stuff. I talk about marketing. If you're interested and you want our help to start a podcast, please don't wait. Don't put it off. Go to Kadosh Media, schedule a time, and let's talk. That's KADOSH media.com. Just step out and do what you were called to do, and do it with excellence.
Absolutely. No one can give you money, donate to your cause, or help you build the vision that you have if they don't know you exist. Get you a media team, media strategy, get you a podcast, start a blog, whatever the thing is to get the word out there, because no one cares more about your vision than you do.
Amen to that. Well, Travis, it has been an absolute blast coming on your show and talking podcasting and all things media and marketing and a little bit of mindset for flavor.
Yeah, I had a great time. It was great having you, Teresa.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to The Nonprofit Architect. To listen to all our past shows, visit http://nonprofitarchitect.org. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show. Thank you.